Yeah, so let me introduce myself in a few words. Some of you might know me from the previous Talk and Play, not talking, but showing, and I was probably I would be associated with a poetry game called Boat for Two. But today I'm stepping into my much older and much more comfortable shoes. That is of a, by the way, of a game scholar. And I've been doing game theory and game studies for the last 8 years, and I still keep doing it, which means it's not only work, but it's fun. And thank you for the invitation, Lorenzo, and I'm really happy I made it after those 4 months, finally. Right, and I will take up the challenge to a challenge of 5 minutes for science, which is really challenging. And so let me begin with this speed run. When you think about games and play, things that are playful, you probably would not picture this. You would not think in terms of factories. You would not think in terms of sweatshops or assembly lines. What you might have in mind, I guess, maybe each one of us a bit different, is a hopscotch or some other playful activities from your childhood, maybe swings, maybe chess, maybe some board games, or maybe you would think of your first digital playful encounters in playing Super Mario Bros. Or maybe finally, most of us would think of one of the most popular and one of the biggest MMOs of the digital era, World of Warcraft. But, and that's where the cliffhanger lies, World of Warcraft is not only a playful space. For some, it may be a factory floor, it may be a sweatshop that you saw just a few seconds ago, and some players in that very same game might be performing something that is called Ludic labor. And I'm sure there are a lot of players, World of Warcraft maybe as well, players around here, and you're probably familiar with what is called grinding, so performing those repetitive and very tiresome tasks of collecting experience points, collecting virtual stuff, and leveling up your characters. And this is still fine because it's part of the game. But the problem is that for some players, it's no longer game, but it's work. So there are players around the world, usually from China or India, that basically level up their characters in order to sell the characters themselves or virtual properties on a gaming stock exchange. And this is called gold farming. And those types of players are usually in theory referred to as players. This is a term from 2005, or work players, term from 2013. And as you saw before, they perform ludic labor, or something that is also called play economy or ludic capitalism. So if you keep this very short example in your mind, you might come to the conclusion that something that you would associate, something that you would think of as two antagonisms, as separate, as distinctions, are not necessarily so. So work as drudgery versus play as frivolity is not necessarily always the case. Or let's have another one, self-fulfilling work-related activity. This happens, right? And I guess for most of you here, or most of us here, work is actually a self-fulfilling, not a self-alienating and gruesome activity. And in case of grinding and selling on the stock exchange market, playing, I don't know, 14 hours per day, World of Warcraft, and then selling the swords, this does not sound like fun anymore. So if you keep this, the complexity of this antagonism in your mind as we go on, that would be really great. So what I really wanted to show you today is a new, fairly new phenomenon that has been happening since around 2008. And this is citizen science games. They are sometimes referred to as games with a purpose, GWOP. And what are they actually? So those types of games are big data ludic spaces, collaborative spaces, where thousands of players meet online, with the only difference that they do not play the game for the game's sake. Usually these are puzzle games, but there is an external purpose to the game. And in the case of citizen science games, it is connected with work, with scientific work. So all those players out there help researchers to pursue scientific questions and contribute to the development of science. It could be biology, it could be neuroscience, could be art history, could be linguistics, could be anything. So a few examples. Eterna from 2010. This is where you play an online puzzle game and you put together the shapes of RNA. Or iWire, where you basically map neural pathways. Or Galaxy Zoo, when you're determining the shapes of the galaxies or categorizing the galaxies according to the shapes. Or two last examples very quickly from Germany. Metropolitalia, which is about tagging social language, or Artigo about tagging works of art. And some of them are, as you see, a bit more playful. Some of them are more like online challenges, like those two last examples that you see here. But some of them, like especially the first two, if you really go online and have a look, they do look like puzzle games. And let me tell you a few more words about Eterna, because Eterna is one of the most successful and at the moment one of the biggest games of this kind. So it was based on a prototype from 2008. You might have heard of it. It's called Folded. Then in 2010 it developed into Eterna, and there are more than 38,000 players playing that game at the moment. And if you're particularly good in folding those patterns, every 2 weeks the best designs are taking and virtually taken and simulated in scientific laboratories, in this case at Stanford University. So what happens this, of course the example is different to grinding in World of Warcraft, but what happens here is also combining the world of something that you would associate with some kind of productivity, which again you might associate with something that you do at work. You would not associate it with the classical or Huizingian definition of play, which is frivolous, unproductive, that has nothing to do with reality whatsoever. Those games or those phenomena show that things are changing. And you might think about those types of games or those two examples that we just very briefly speed ran through in terms of, for example, work play, interplay, work/play, or something that I and a colleague of mine call work and play interference. And if you would like to know more about, this is a really fancy graph, so remember it. If you would like to know more about work-play interferences, games as factories, or any other aspects of unclear, fuzzy, playful and laborious experiences, you can just do so by either following, I'm not following my Twitter, or just writing up to me on Twitter. But most of the academic stuff can be found on Academia Edu, and this research is, or what I have presented to you today, is part of a larger research project, that's an ongoing research project that I'm doing with an anthropologist, Anne Dippel, and really exciting news for science. We will be publishing a lot of our findings this year and in the upcoming years. So yeah, I don't know, hashtag game theory rocks, games for science, games as factory, whatever you want to hashtag. I hope I managed to get you interested in game theory, or in a really tiny aspect of what one could do when we think about game studies or game science. And I'm really happy to have talk to such a varied and diverse audience. And thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Now?